Welcome to the deep dive. If you're here, you're probably someone who likes to, really get to the heart of things, understand how stuff actually works. Today, we're diving deep into the mind of Neville Goddard, specifically his really groundbreaking work, The Power of Awareness. It's a text that, honestly, it promises to completely reframe how you see reality itself. So our mission today, pretty simple. We've gone through the sources you shared on Neville, and we're here to pull out the absolute core insights, the game changers. Think of it as your shortcut to really grasping conscious manifestation. And there's some surprising stuff in here, some really practical wisdom. You might have a few aha moments,
Well,
seriously.
absolutely. It's an incredibly coherent philosophy
Yeah.
and transformative, really.
Yeah.
The sources you provided, they give us a fantastic overview of his teachings. Everything from the foundational principles right through to very specific techniques.
Mhm.
And even how they kind of echo modern science and psychology, which is fascinating. It's a real journey into the power of your own mind.
Okay, let's get right into it then, because Neville starts The Power of Awareness with this really bold statement, doesn't he? Consciousness is the one and only reality. And he means that literally. Like, for Neville, the whole external world, it didn't separate. It's a projection, or as he puts it, consciousness objectified. So your reality, everything you experience, it's basically, well, it's a reflection of your inner world, your
Yeah.
thoughts, feelings, beliefs. It's your mind just pushed out.
Right. And what's so key is how he immediately links that to the I am principle. He says, I am, is that fundamental awareness of being, that feeling that you just are. Neville even calls it the self-definition of God within us.
Hmm.
It's the core creative power. I mean, think about it. You might forget who you are or where you are sometimes, but you never, ever forget that you are, that basic sense of existence. For Neville, that is the divine spark. That's the creative force that shapes everything.
And that's where it gets really key because he connects that I am directly to your concept of yourself. So the assumptions, the beliefs you hold about who you are, they literally dictate your world. He has that famous quote, right? Leave the mirror and change your face. Leave the world alone and change your conceptions of yourself. The reflection then will be satisfactory. Wow. So the big takeaway isn't just thoughts matter, it's that you're literally living inside your own projection. That puts all the power and the responsibility right back on us, doesn't it?
It really does. Which leads straight to another core idea. There's no one and nothing to change but self. If reality is just a reflection, then changing the reflection means changing the source. Inner change has to come before outer change. It completely slips the script on being a victim of circumstance. The power is entirely internal.
So, for you listening right now, what does this mean in practice? It means instead of thinking, oh, one day I'll get my dream job, you'd feel, I am successful in a fulfilling career. Right now, Neville calls this an act of conscious creation. Just assuming it, feeling it as true now, sets everything in motion behind the scenes. It creates that bridge of incidents to bring it into your world.
Exactly. He insists that awareness of being is the substance of all things. And all conceptions are limitations of the conceiver. So if you think of yourself as, say, always struggling with money, that concept is the limitation until you change it. But the good news is, because consciousness is fundamental, you can change that concept at any time. And when you do, you automatically reach a higher level of being. Your outer world then has to shift to match.
Okay, that leads us perfectly into the law of assumption. This is really the cornerstone of his practical teachings, wouldn't you say? The idea that whatever you assume to be true, whatever you believe and crucially feel to be real in your imagination, that's what eventually shows up in your world.
And it's important to distinguish it from the law of attraction, which people often confuse it with. While they overlap, Neville's focus is really on embodying the state of the wish fulfilled right now, inside. It's not about attracting something to you from out there. It's about becoming the person who already has it internally. His big instruction is assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Feel it now.
Right, and that feeling part is everything. Feeling is the secret. He's so clear about that. It's not just affirmations or mental pictures alone. It's the emotional certainty, that deep gut feeling, that inner knowing that you already are what you want to be. That's what impresses the subconscious mind. Thoughts without that genuine feeling, they just don't have the creative juice, basically.
Exactly. And the way you apply this is through what he calls living in the end. You mentally choose your desired end result, and then you live from there in your imagination. You think from that state, not of it as something far off. You feel the gratitude, the relief, the joy, as if it's already done. You make the future present internally.
And his own Barbados story is the classic example of this, isn't it? He was broke in New York, desperately wanted to go home to Barbados. So every night as he was falling asleep, he imagined he was in Barbados. felt the warm air, smelled the sea, saw the palm trees, felt the joy of being home, really lived it. And then what happens? Out of the blue, an old friend contacts him and gifts him a ticket. Paid in full. That's the bridge of incidents in action.
That's it. Exactly. Living in the end triggers that bridge, that series of seemingly natural, sometimes surprising events. Your job isn't to figure out the how. It's not to force things. It's just to stay faithful to that inner feeling, that state of the wish fulfilled, the subconscious or the universe, whatever you want to call it. It finds the way. It handles the details.
So practical advice for you listening. Pick a short, specific scene implying your wish is fulfilled. Maybe someone congratulating you or you using the desired object. Then really infuse it with feeling. Make it feel real and natural. And keep returning to it, especially in that relaxed, drowsy state before sleep essays. Okay, so if assumption and feeling are the mechanism, what's the fuel? That brings us to desire and imagination. Neville had a really interesting take on desire, didn't he? Not something bad, but the actual starting point of all creation.
Yeah.
He even said desire is basically God speaking to you. It's an impulse guiding you toward your next step, your evolution.
And imagination is the tool, the primary creative tool.
Yeah.
He actually equates imagination with God. Imagination creates reality is probably his most famous line. But it's not just random daydreaming. It's controlled imagination, consciously directing your mind to see and feel the outcome you intend.
Yeah, there's that powerful line in the book. The great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention firmly and repeatedly focused on the feeling of the wish fulfilled, until it fills the mind and crowds out all other ideas. That crowds out all other ideas part feels really key, because if you're imagining success 1 minute, then worrying about failure the next, that's a mixed mental diet, right? It cancels itself out.
Completely.
Yeah.
It's like trying to drive with 1 foot on the gas and 1 foot on the brake. You won't get very far.
Yeah.
So, for effective imagination, vivid scenes, engage all the senses. What would you see, hear, touch, taste, smell, and crucially, feel the emotions of it being real. And that's where S.A. des, the state akin to sleep, comes in again. That drowsy, pre-sleep state is ideal because your conscious mind's resistance is low, making the subconscious super receptive.
And how does faith fit into this? Neville connects imagination directly to faith. He says faith is feeling. Faith isn't blind belief in something outside you. It's loyalty to the unseen reality. It's the conviction that your imagined state is real, even if you can't see it yet. He believed anything is possible if you can conceive it and feel it as true. It's about trusting your inner world.
Right. And he wasn't just talking theory. He constantly used case histories, real stories from his students and himself to show this works for anyone. It wasn't just for mystics. It's a universal power available to everyone, which is incredibly empowering.
So that desire, it needs to be strong, right? A burning desire that focuses your attention completely on the wish fulfilled. That focus is what gives it life and consciousness.
Yes, but here's a really comforting part of his teaching. Creation is finished. All possibilities, everything you could ever desire or imagine already exists, now, in consciousness. So when you assume a state, you're not creating something brand new from scratch. You're simply selecting and occupying a state that already exists within that infinite potential. It's already yours for the taking. You just need to claim it internally.
That's a huge shift in perspective. Okay, so moving into the practical side. Your attitude, emotions, and how you work with the subconscious seem absolutely key. Neville really stresses maintaining a constructive inner state, doesn't he? And he sees negative emotions almost like warning lights, not bad in themselves, but indicators that you're in the wrong state. Signals that your inner world isn't aligned with where you want to go.
Exactly. And on the positive side, he puts a lot of emphasis on gratitude. A grateful heart attracts blessings. Feeling grateful now instantly aligns you with the state of receiving. It shifts your whole energy, signals to your subconscious that you're ready for more good things. It's very powerful.
And then there's controlling attention. The mental diet idea, you have to be vigilant, right? Focus on what you want to impress and deliberately starve the contradictory thoughts and feelings. You can't let weeds take over the garden.
Precisely. Which often requires renunciation, letting go of the old self, the limiting beliefs. He said, only as one is willing to give up his present limitations and identity can he become that which he desires to be. So if you want to be confident, you have to consciously stop identifying with being shy. You renounce that old state. You stop feeding it attention and feeling.
Makes sense. And finally, persistence. This seems to be where a lot of people stumble. They try it for a bit, don't see instant results in the 3D world, and give up. It's like planting a seed and digging it up every day to see if it's sprouted. You have to trust the process.
And that's where that quote is so insightful. The fact that it does not feel natural to you to be what you imagine yourself to be is the secret of your failure.
Hmm.
Success comes when the new state does feel natural. When you've rehearsed it so much in imagination that it feels more real than your current circumstances,
Mm.
persistence gets you to that point of naturalness.
Okay, let's make this even more concrete. We mentioned the Barbados story. What are some other real-life examples Neville used? I remember the story of the woman selling her house.
Yes, in a really slow market. She didn't focus on the for sale sign or the lack of buyers. Instead, every night, she vividly imagined handing the keys over to the happy new owner. Felt the relief, heard the congratulations, and boom, the house sold quickly and easily. And there was the struggling businessman whose sales were awful. Neville taught him revision. So at night, he'd mentally rewrite his bad sales days. He'd imagine successful meetings, happy clients, combine that with assuming the feeling of being a successful businessman now, and his business completely turned around. New clients, new opportunities just started showing up. It really shows how consciousness directs the show.
It really does. Now let's look at some modern parallels. Things we see today that kind of echo Neville's ideas. Elite athletes, for example. They use visualization, mental rehearsal all the time. Olympic gymnasts picturing the perfect routine, feeling every move. And neuroscience backs this up now, right, with neuroplasticity. Imagine practice strengthens neural pathways, almost like real practice.
Absolutely. And think about the placebo effect in medicine. Belief alone triggering real physiological changes. It's mind over matter in a very literal sense. Or self-fulfilling prophecies in psychology. The student who believes I'm bad at math performs poorly. It confirms their belief. And the Pygmalion effect, teachers' high expectations boosting student performance. The assumption, the expectation, creates the reality.
Yeah, those are powerful examples. And then you have the more maybe speculative connections, like the observer effect in quantum physics, or multiverse theories, the idea that maybe our assumptions tune us into a specific reality out of many possibilities. These aren't proof, obviously, but they're interesting resonances.
They're intriguing metaphors, definitely. But the core message of the power of awareness is that it's a practical, testable process. It really comes down to inner change precedes outer change.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is you can consciously direct that process.
It's fascinating how these ideas, maybe seen as out there in Neville's time, are increasingly intersecting with mainstream psychology and even hints in science, just using different terms.
Totally. Let's break down those connections a bit more. His emphasis on self-concept and belief, that lines up perfectly with things like Albert Bandura's self-efficacy theory, your belief in your own ability. And it's central to cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Changing beliefs changes behavior and outcomes. Neville just took it a step further, saying it changes reality.
Right. Your concept of yourself determines your world.
And the self-fulfilling prophecy we mentioned. That's basically the law of assumption in sociological terms. The Rosenthal-Jacobson study with the teachers and students is a textbook example. The assumption drove the result.
Visualization and performance. We covered that with athletes. The brain scans showing similar activity for imagined versus real practice are pretty compelling.
Definitely. And the subconscious mind, Neville's mechanism for manifestation. Think about the reticular activating system, the RAS, in your brain. It's like a filter. When you decide you want a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere, right? Your RAS is primed. Neville's assumptions seem to work like that priming your awareness to notice opportunities and synchronicities aligned with your goal. It changes your inner filter.
That makes so much sense. It's not necessarily making things appear from thin air, but tuning you into what's already there or becoming available.
Exactly. And the mind-body connection is huge now. Stress impacts health. Positive emotions can boost immunity, the placebo effect. Neville's feeling is the secret, taps right into that powerful psychosomatic link. Emotion is the language the body and the deeper mind understands.
So while maybe not proven in a hard scientific sense across the board, there's a lot of converging evidence from psychology and neuroscience supporting the power of mindset, belief, and imagination.
Precisely. Neville's work can be seen as a very practical, hands-on application of principles that science is increasingly recognizing.
Okay, before we get to some common questions, let's quickly recap a few other key Neville concepts that really deepen the understanding. You mentioned the bridge of incidents.
Right. That's the sequence of events that naturally unfolds once you've successfully impressed your subconscious with your assumption. Remember, you don't force it. You trust it. You follow intuitive nudges, those little inspired actions that feel easy and natural. The bridge builds itself.
And revision. That sounds incredibly powerful.
It is. It's about mentally rewriting past negative events. Had an argument. Replay it in your mind as a peaceful resolution. Lost a client. Imagine the meeting went brilliantly. This isn't about denying the past happened. It's about changing its effect on your present and future by changing the feeling and impression associated with it in your subconscious. It releases you from past patterns.
Wow, okay. And SAT state akin to sleep, just to reiterate.
Yes, that optimal drowsy state, usually just before falling asleep or upon waking. Your conscious, critical mind is relaxed, making the subconscious highly receptive to your imaginal act, your feeling of the wish fulfilled. Prime time for planting seeds.
Law of assumption, the bedrock principle.
Assume your desire is already a fact. Identify with that state, be it now, internally.
Feeling is the secret.
The absolute key. Generate the genuine feeling of the wish fulfilled. That's the creative power.
And living from the end.
Mentally and emotionally dwell in the state of already having your desire. Think from that perspective, not of it. Become that version of you psychologically first.
Those are such potent tools. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Rapid fire Q&A time. Let's tackle some questions listeners might have. First up, in just one sentence, what is the power of awareness really about?
Basically, your consciousness creates your reality, so by changing your inner assumptions and feelings, you can deliberately manifest the life you desire.
Simple enough. How do I actually apply the law of assumption day to day?
Okay. Define your desire clearly. Create a short mental scene implying it's done. Replay that scene with feeling, especially in essays. Then during the day, carry that inner knowing. Think from the end. Use I am statements, and maybe use revision for any setbacks. Persist.
Got it. What's the main difference again between law of assumption and law of attraction?
Assumption is about being it now, internally changing your state of consciousness. Attraction is often seen as drawing something external to you. Neville says ignore the outside, change the inside first by assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live in the end state.
Makes sense. So living in the end or living from the end, what does that really mean in practice?
It means you mentally and emotionally inhabit the reality where your wish is already fulfilled. You think, feel, and even act internally at first, as if you are that person or have that thing right now. You occupy that state.
In the bridge of incidents, do I need to worry about how things will happen?
Nope. That's the beauty of it. The bridge unfolds automatically, often in surprising ways. Your only job is to stay faithful to the feeling of the end result. Follow natural intuitions, but don't try to force the how. Trust the process.
Okay. Neville talks a lot about the subconscious. What's the dynamic between the conscious and subconscious here?
Think of the conscious mind as the gardener who chooses the seed, the idea of the imaginal act. The subconscious is the fertile soil that accepts the seed and makes it grow, bringing it into form. Feeling and belief are like the water and sunlight. They convince the subconscious to accept the seed. SA test helps bypass the conscious weeds of doubt.
What if I really struggle to believe my new assumption? It feels fake at first.
Totally normal. That's where persistence is key. Keep practicing the feeling. Make the imaginal act more vivid. Repetition builds belief. Maybe start with smaller things you find easier to believe. Build confidence. Use revision on past successes to prove it to yourself. Treat it like an experiment. What have you got to lose?
Good advice. Is there actual scientific evidence that consciousness affects reality in the way Neville described?
Well, as we discussed, there isn't one single study proving the whole model. But there's lots of supportive evidence from psychology, self-fulfilling prophecies, placebo, visualization's effect on the brain, the RAS filtering reality. Parapsychology sometimes shows links between expectation and results. Quantum physics offers intriguing metaphors, so science strongly supports that mindset and imagination do powerfully shape our experience. Neville provides a framework to use that power deliberately.
Okay, quick recap. Who exactly was Neville Goddard, and why is he still so relevant?
He was a mid-20th century teacher, part of the New Thought movement. His influence lasts because his teachings are so practical, so empowering, giving you 100% responsibility and control. His psychological take on scripture is unique, and the internet has given his work a massive modern resurgence. He's seen as a really profound teacher on the mind's creative power.
Last question. Do we need to be religious or spiritual to use these teachings?
Not at all. Neville used biblical stories as psychological dramas, metaphors for consciousness. The techniques work based on how the mind operates, like a mental law, not because of religious belief or pleasing a deity. The faith he talks about is faith in your own imagination, loyalty to your unseen assumption becoming real. It's self-confidence in your creative power. Consciousness works for everyone, regardless of belief system.
Wow. What an incredible journey through the power of awareness. It really hammers home that empowering idea. Your consciousness shapes your reality. It's always reflecting you. The key takeaway really is your world is your consciousness objectified.
Absolutely. And the crucial thing is, these aren't just interesting ideas to think about. They're practical, testable principles.
Hmm.
Neville always urged people to be doers of the word, not just hearers. So we really hope you'll experiment with this. Try it out in your own life. See what happens.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. If your awareness, your I am, truly is the only reality, what new I am statement, what new identity will you choose to consciously embody starting right now? Really knowing that the outer world has no choice but to eventually rearrange itself to reflect that inner shift. Well, your life becomes the ultimate laboratory, doesn't it? Go experiment.